I can't think of a single golfer out there that is not currently working on something in their swing to improve their game. But if you're anything like me, swing changes can be a little bit ambiguous in the way that we practice them. We're not sure how long it takes to make them stick, what's the best way to go about it, and really, if I'm being honest, a lot of people are making swing changes that maybe they just really don't understand exactly why they should be doing that. But as human beings, I don't think we give ourselves enough credit for how skilled and how motivated we can be and how thoughtful we can be when we really put our minds to something and just actually think about why we're applying a certain change or trying to improve something in our lives. And in today's video, we're going to talk about how I'm going to go about making an effective swing change. I think that my swing changes haven't stuck because I haven't correctly identified why it's important to make those changes to my game. Simply put, if I don't understand the importance of why, then it's very difficult to put behind a lot of the effort. Let's talk about what it takes to make an effective swing change right now. Thank you very much for tuning into my YouTube channel. My name is Kenny. Some of you may know me as Kennie Kat. I am a competitive golfer, and this channel is dedicated to my journey on what it takes to become a better competitive golfer. Let's jump straight into it. Now, if you don't remember from my season recap, I'll put the link in the description above. I talked a little bit about the swing changes that I'm going to be focusing on during my second season of competitive golf. And the biggest thing is going to be my trail hip. This is something that I have been working on with Big Kurt for a very long time, and if I'm being 100% honest, I haven't put as much effort into this simply because I haven't taken the time to understand why it's important to my overall game. And just like I said, if you don't really understand the importance of why something is, you're not going to put in the work to do it. And I think a reason a lot of us golfers don't have swing changes that stick is not because we don't understand what we're supposed to be doing. We just really haven't taken a second to think about the why. This reminds me of a very simple experiment that I did in business class in college, and it's basically called the 5 whys. You have a problem and you ask yourself why 5 times, and at the 5th time you get to the core problem of your answer. So I did the 5 whys experiments with myself and was just honest and kind of wrote it down on a piece of paper. And I'd recommend that you do the exact same thing too. And quickly before we get into this, are you working on anything in your game right now? Any swing changes? Let me know in those comment sections below, and then let me know your main why for the reason that those swing changes haven't stuck in your game. So the problem that Big Kurt and I have been working on is rotating my trail hip in my backswing. Why are we working on that problem? So I can sequence better and get the club into a better impact position. And why do we want that to happen? Better sequencing allows me to deliver a better strike to the ball and keep the club face square longer through the impact area. And why do I want that? A better strike and a square face longer through the impact area will help me hit the ball further with a tighter dispersion. Why do I want that? A tighter dispersion and more distance will help me hit closer to a target more often. And why do I want that? Hitting the ball longer will get me closer to the green. A tighter dispersion will allow me to hit more greens. So my synopsis is I'm working on rotating my trail hip and my backswing so I can ultimately increase my greens in regulation and decrease my distance to the hole on approach shots. That's the why. That's the only reason why we should be doing anything in our golf swing, is because we want to improve some outcome that's going to ultimately help us score better. And when I did this thought experiment on a piece of paper, I realized that had I simply taken some time to think about it and really put down a why behind the goal, I could be more motivated to ultimately practice and get a solution in place to make this a better change or make this change more permanent. But they have to be SMART goals. They've got to be specific, they've got to be measurable, they've got to be attainable, they've got to be relevant, and they've got to be time-based. If you don't put those stipulations on any goal that you're looking to do in life, like, you're never gonna have any specific criteria on when you complete that goal. I made an entire video about increasing my distance, and I was specific about the speed that I wanted to get to. I had a system and a device to measure my progress. I chose an attainable outcome based off of real world experience and my coach's advice and just realistically what I felt would be possible for my body. I clearly and thoughtfully laid out why increasing distance was relevant to my game. In fact, I made an entire video about why distance is really important to becoming a better golfer. And I put a time frame on that goal, which was 6 months, which is the end of the year. Is anyone shocked that 50% of the way through the time frame that I set, I'm a little bit more than 50% of the way to my goal? And because I understand this, I practice it religiously. It has a specific outcome that I'm looking to get. I can't get better if I don't have more speed. And that's kind of my quotable. If I don't understand the importance, then I won't be dedicated to putting in the effort. And that goes with anything in golf. So if you're working on a swing change and you've already put that in the comment sections below, make sure you do yourself some service and think about why it's important for you to add that swing change in your game. So how do I create a smart goal for a golf movement, right? Because movement patterns can be a little bit complex, they can be a little bit vague. Like I'm working on rotating my trail hip. Like what does that mean? Am I measuring that with like 3D sensors? Are we measuring that visually? And I get that that's something that is a little bit difficult because you don't really know the like when it's completed. I think it makes sense to break those down into individual small components. And I think that everybody is fully capable of breaking down an advanced motor movement or an advanced learning skill. And we do it all the time. Just for some reason when it gets to golf, like, I don't know, like people's minds go out the window and it's just like, we pretend that golf is like some form of movement that has never, there's no other form of movements in the world that are this complex or that have this many steps or whatever the case may be. And it's like, oh, we don't know how to figure this out. This person says this person says that. Take, for example, learning how to drive for the first time.
Don't look at me, look at the people next to me. Turn away.
Like many people that learn how to drive, I'm sure that before you started, you learned driving by just sitting in a parking lot with the car probably not even being turned on, or maybe even the driveway with your parents. And they went over some of the basics. Here's a steering wheel, here's a brake pedal, here's a clutch, here's a gas, here's a gear selector. All the basics of the things that you would need to drive a car, right? And then someone took you to a big old open parking lot or a big, open field or whatever the case may be, and they allowed you to operate a vehicle at very, very slow speeds. You just got the fundamentals and the understanding of like steering, applying gas, applying brake, and like many people when you first started, you were like jerky and like all these erratic movements because it's very scary and there's a lot of complex things that go into driving a vehicle. But after a while, you eventually got your learner's permit or you did this enough times to where you felt comfortable enough to drive under adult supervision on like residential streets in your neighborhood. Maybe there were like 1 or 2 cars or you drove at a time, there was nobody really on the road, and you just started to learn the basics of navigating on a road. And eventually, after months and months and months of doing these slow tasks in safe environments on residential streets, on side streets, on very well-known paths, you eventually graduated into learning how to drive on an expressway. Now, many of you watching this video, myself included, could argue that driving a car feels a lot easier than golf. But I doubt a single person watching this video would let their teenage child go to drive a car on an expressway after giving them a 30 or 60-minute lesson in a parking lot. Aha, you know where I'm going with this. But why do so many of us take a 30 or a 60-minute lesson on a driving range and then try to implement that into a full speed environment on a golf course and expect these swing changes to stick? I've done it. I'm sure many of you down that lens have done it as well too. My goal is to be able to swing 3 different types of clubs, a wedge, an iron, and a wood or a long iron at 20% while being able to maintain those 3 specific checkpoints: rotation of the hip, club at good impact position, and hips open at impact. My timeline is going to be 3 to 4 weeks to get this at 20%. Now that we have that clear goal, let's talk about how we're going to build a practice plan around it. So the first phase, and this will be a series of videos because I want to see how this improves. The first phase is going to be our parking lot. We're gonna stick with the analogy because I think it just makes sense. So we're gonna stick with the parking lot. And in the parking lot, we're gonna do these drills inside the house and we're gonna do them away from the ball. We wanna use a mirror drill, a sandwich drill, and then a pelvis fire drill. Let's take a quick look at what those 3 drills look like, and we're gonna talk a little bit more about why I think they're the most helpful for learning a new swing change. So the move we're specifically talking about is the trail hip. So if you look at my swing on the left, this is where it gets really bad. And here's the move we're talking about. That right hip that's going kind of this way. So if we see that in there, that right hip moves off to away from the target, and it's not a rotation, it's more of a slide to the right. When I make this movement, what I tend to do is get my club and arms out of sequence. And as a result, I have to flip my hands in time to square the face up in order to get the ball to start on line. Now, if my timing is good that day or when I'm hitting the shot can work, as in this case it did. But if the timing is off, and we're talking about, we're swinging a 7-iron at 90 plus miles an hour, if this timing is off by even a millisecond, that's a shot that's going to be completely unpredictable. It's not going to start on a consistent pattern, and that's just not going to be a sustainable movement pattern for me to play good golf. When my hips are cleared, it gives my hands the space to swing the club through. And as you can see, when the handle is forward, for the way that I grip the club and the way my body is set up, that face stays square through the impact area for a lot longer. And there is not a lot of manipulation that has to happen as a result of that. And in order for me to play consistent golf, I can't rely on manipulating and timing the face to get square. I have to get my body in a position that's going to allow that face to be as square for as long as possible in the impact area. The first drill I'm going to talk about is the mirror drill, and we call it a mirror drill simply because you practice it in front of a mirror. This isn't actually something that I created myself. I actually got this from Tiger Woods' book, The Big Miss, where he talks about he was playing against Vijay Singh, and he was just having difficulty hitting good shots, and he just texted Butch Harmon, I think, and said, hey, I can't beat him if I don't get XYZ under control. And Butch Harmon basically told him to work on his swing in the mirror. And I think this is something that is like scientifically backed, that when you see yourself doing it, it's easier for your brain to imprint the feelings. But essentially the mirror drill I use, and I recommend it for any type of physical swing movement. It's helpful for you to see yourself doing it so that your brain can internalize it. I think it makes a lot of sense, and I've seen a lot of success with it. So I use the mirror drill in addition to the sandwich drill. And a sandwich drill is something that, again, I got from other intelligent golf minds, a golf instructor called Ian Highfield that does a program called Game Like Training, where basically he's done the research, and in order for you to train a new motor movement, or the best way to train it, is to do the move that you want to do, and then you sandwich in the move that you don't want to do, and then you complete that with the move that you do want to do. So the goal here is to give yourself visual feedback from the mirror, and also give yourself physical or kinesthetic feedback of what the good move or the newly desired move feels like relative to what the old or the bad motor pattern feels like, and then sandwich it in between. And over time, you start to blend into the new movement, and it becomes more and more difficult to access the motor patterns of the less desired movement. Now, Ian Highfield also talks about, in addition to giving yourself visual and kinesthetic awareness, it's very helpful to talk aloud while you're doing this. And that makes sense, because one of the things that's always helped me learn, and that helps me like with my creative process when I'm doing videos, just anything learning in general, is I like to talk it out, and that helps my brain process the information more. So I'm just going to go through a quick set and let you observe exactly what that looks like. And you'll notice that I'm basically watching myself do the moves, talking about the moves that I'm doing, and helping my brain and body connect those two. Back in the gravity fit, I'm going to go ahead and step forward. Put in a bit swing on this one. I'm going to place that club face at the target. It looks good from there. Position looks good. I'm going to place it into my left fingers for a grip. And then I'm going to make sure I put my strong right grip on the club. I'm going to lean forward. Then I'm going to take my setup position. Club looks good. Shoulders are just a little bit close to the target line. Check my target again. Everything looks good. I'm going to go ahead and fire. I'm going to bring that club back. Low and slow with that left hand pushing it back. Make sure we fight with a little bit of resistance on that left leg. Get that left shoulder to drop. We're in a good position. Start pushing back on that left hip. All right, get the club shallowed out. It's coming in, it's coming in. It's square to impact, square to impact. Go ahead and release it. All right. That was a good swing. All right, I'm going to do a bad swing. Step into my target zone. I'm going to place my club face square to my target. I'm going to go ahead and place my left grip with my fingers and my right grip. Lean the club forward. Take my step, set my stance. I look good in the mirror. Body feels comfortable. We're going to go ahead and start taking that club back, Let that left knee kick in, let that right hip kick out. All right, take that down a little bit slower, come through impact. That's the bad swing. All right, we're going to step off. Take a deep breath. Step back into my target. I'm going to go ahead and place my club face square to where my target is, or my start direction, right at the base. Place my left grip. Get my right grip. I'm going to lean that club head forward as I set my stance. A little bit of side bend in the upper body. I look good in the mirror. Shoulders are a little bit close to the target. We're going to go ahead and start. Come back a little bit faster. We're going to fight that resistance, leading with that left hand. Leading with that left hand. Club is looking good in the mirror. Set. Rotate, rotate, rotate through. That feels good. The next drill that I'm going to be working on is a pelvic firing drill. This is something that I got from Kurt and K Vest. You take the club back to first parallel and you try to fire your hips as quickly as possible to get the feeling of the proper sequence of, having your hips open at impact and try to hit the ball. This is a drill that I absolutely cannot stand. And typically, like many things in golf, if you don't like a drill, probably means you need to be doing a lot more of it. And as I'm looking at this footage that I recorded, I want to say, maybe a month or so ago, I wish I did not put a ball in this, because it's clear to see that the movement that I'm looking at on the video looks very good. My hips are getting very open. The club is trailing behind me. The handle is leaning forward. I'm just not getting the desired impact and the desired results that I want to from the ball flight. And that's okay, which is why in these initial phases, we're taking the ball completely out of this. Oftentimes, when you put a ball into a swing change, you can end up regressing because, if you're like me, you're very results oriented, especially when you're doing a swing change, and it makes you so impatient that it takes away the focus from the fact that I was actually getting the movement exactly the way I want to get it. And then try to fire those hips as quickly as possible to get those hips open before the club impacts the ground. And as long as I can get that feeling and make this more comfortable, I'll start to introduce the ball at some point, within a week or two or so into these drills, and we can start increasing the complexity just like we're learning how to drive a car. Right now, what we really need to be focused on, or what I'm focusing on, is the movement pattern. And from this video, I can see that it looks really, really good. I wish I had taken the ball out of the situation, because it really just makes you too focused on trying to hit a good shot instead of, performing a good movement. All right. Now that we've got that done, I know I have to put a lot of information into the start of this video series, but I think it's important to set good groundwork if I'm going to be going through this. And just like the super speed swing sticks, I'm going to be giving you different phases and where my progress is at. I think it's important for you all down that lens to understand. And if you want to follow along with your own swing changes, by all means, let me know in that comment section below. And obviously the goal is to make this movement more natural in my swing, and that should obviously lead to some better results out on the course. As always, thank you very much for watching my YouTube channel. Deuces, people. Let's keep it moving.